Let's talk about fall phrasal verbs. And I'm not really talking about the fall season. I'm talking about phrasal verbs that all have the word fall. And phrasal verbs can be confusing for a couple of different reasons. You have the verb followed by a preposition, and when that preposition changes, well, the meaning is likely going to change. And phrasal verbs, many of them have multiple meanings as well. And as we go through the lesson, I will talk to you about that. And the one thing that I will really try to do as I teach you these different phrasal verbs is to give you some context and talk about, well, how you might often hear people use these phrasal verbs or how you can use them if you're having a conversation with someone else. Let me quickly introduce myself in case this is your first time here. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about trying to help you reach your fluency goals. If that is what you would like to do, please subscribe, turn on notifications so that you will learn about future lessons. Let's start with our first phrasal verb, our first fall phrasal verb, which is to fall apart. And if you say that something falls apart, it just means it's breaking into many pieces. Or you could use it to refer to something that's breaking in general. So maybe you build something. It breaks into many pieces. You could say, well, it fell apart. Or if I have something like maybe a table, somebody could say, well, yeah, this table, it's really old, it's falling apart. It's not literally breaking into all these different pieces. You're really just saying it's kind of breaking down in general. It's not working very well. You need a new table because this one is falling apart.
Well, we could use the extra money, and this house is falling apart.
Then we have fall behind, and this means that you fail to do something fast enough or on time, or even that you're just able to maintain some level. So I think people often use this with work, and maybe they have a project and they have other things that they need to do. And you could say, yeah, I'm falling behind with my work. Or in the context of education, especially when you're talking about trying to maintain a certain level. If you're having difficulty in a class and you feel like all the other students are getting ahead of you, then you could say, well, the class is so difficult, I think I'm starting to fall behind and I'm not able to maintain a certain level. Fall behind.
Spring session should end.
You'd be expected to tutor him so he doesn't fall behind. In that respect, your classroom experience may actually be of use.
Fall through. This phrasal verb means that something is just not going to happen. And I think quite often we use this to talk about plans. We have things that we want to do. We hope that they happen. But if they don't, then you could say, this weekend, my plans just fell through and it's not going to happen.
That was great.
What are you doing here?
Something fell through, so I was able to come back a few days early.
Then I have a 3-word phrasal verb for you, which is to fall back on. And what this means is that you use something, especially in the form of financial support, when everything else has failed. And you might say that, well, I can't find a job right now, and that's okay because I can always fall back on my savings, and I have that financial support that I can fall back on.
What's your financial situation like? Do you have savings to fall back on? Do you come from wealth or?
No.
And then I have a very common phrasal verb, which is fall down. It means to, well, just fall to the ground or floor. And you could use this to talk about a person or a thing. Now, it is a little similar, but also different than fall over, which really means in that case that something is, well, falling on its side when it was vertical. So if I were to use them maybe interchangeably, I could say, I tripped and fell down. It's the same as like, well, I tripped and fell over because I'm no longer standing and I'm on my side. If I were to say something like, I hung a painting and yesterday it fell down. Because it's probably falling to the ground or floor, you're not going to use fall over in that case. And because of that, I think it's so much more common to use fall down.
Fall down an elevator shaft? What the hell does this mean? I fall down an elevator shaft?
I don't know. I just bring the scripts.
Still, it's good to be a little more specific depending on the context. If you want to say something is on its side, it's not vertical anymore, it fell over.
What you doing down there?
I fell over.
What you fell over for? I didn't do it on purpose. Well, come on then.
And then we have fall off, which has a couple of different meanings. So the first one is that something becomes detached or separated from something else. I hung a painting and then the next day it fell off the wall. And often I think people will say what this thing is falling from. You could say the leaves are going to fall off the tree.
What do we do when we fall off the horse? We get back on.
The next meaning of fall off is when the rate or quality of something is becoming slower or smaller. And often I think you may use it in this context when talking about business. And you could say that, well, sales are starting to fall off. It's becoming slower. Or maybe new memberships have been falling off recently. And hi. So you can use fall off in that context of business. Do you have anything you want to add? The next phrasal verb is fall out. It also has a couple of different meanings that I want to teach you. The first one is that, well, to come out of something by falling. You could say that something falls out the window. The second meaning of fall out is to become loose and separate from your head or mouth. So think about it this way. You could say that somebody's hair is falling out, or maybe you have a tooth. It's a little loose and then it falls out. So in this case, when talking about, well, like hair or teeth, you're not going to use fall off. You will use fall out.
Mrs. Simpson, there's no physical reason why your hair should be falling out.
Then we have fall for, also two meanings. The first one is that, well, you develop romantic feelings for someone. And you could say, if somebody were to say, well, I'm falling for him, or I'm falling for her. They're talking about developing those romantic feelings.
Oh my God. You're falling for him.
I am not.
The second meaning is to be tricked or fooled by something. And I think a common expression you might hear in a TV show or movie is like, oh, I fell for the oldest trick in the book. And that just means that you were tricked or deceived by something that you should have known better, because it happens quite often.
The ring! I can't believe you fell for the oldest trick in the book!
And then there's fall into, also a couple of different meanings. The first one is that, well, you go into something, like somebody falls into the pool. Or you could also say that you suddenly have a condition and you might fall into a coma.
Hey, Michael, did you fall into a koi pond?
I can't really hear you. I think we sort of have a bad connection.
Jen, did Michael fall into a koi pond?
Looked like the cabin depressurized and he fell into a coma or something.
Oh, I'm fine.
Sit.
And then there are some useful idioms that have this phrasal verb. You could say that something falls into place, that things happen in a satisfactory way without any problems, and things just fall into place.
Doing this mall tour, and he came here to our mall. It was like everything was finally falling into place. You know, like it was,
fate.
You could also use the idiom to fall in someone's lap. And when something falls into your lap, it really refers to, well, something happens in an unexpected way that you were not planning for. You weren't trying to get this. It just falls into your lap. And you're often referring to something that's positive, something desirable. Maybe you could say, well, I wasn't looking for a new job, but this opportunity just fell into my lap.
It's up to you to make the best of it. And it's not like opportunity is just going to fall into your lap.
I hope that you found this lesson useful. I hope you learned something new and that you can, well, now go out there and try to use some of these phrasal verbs in everyday conversation. They are pretty common. They are very useful. And I hope that you understand it a bit better talking about some of the context in which we use these different phrasal verbs. If you enjoyed the lesson, please hit that like button. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. So long.